Yes, hello again. I would like to greet you all with respect. And I would like to thank Grafist team for organizing this symposium. And I would like to apologize in the beginning as I had an accident with regard to my presentation today, and I had to make it again from scratch. So there are some problems with regard to visuals. So sorry for any inconvenience in advance. So temel tasarım dersinde for one term, we have conducted a studio course, and we would like to share our experience with that. Betül Şahin is my young colleague, and we are giving this course together, and we have prepared this presentation together. The name of our project is the name of this presentation here, a spring term fairy tale, narration and play in online basic design studio. As you know, in online settings, design studio education potentials and borders are discussed for or 2 decades, but COVID-19 has made all this situation obligatory, and design studio course, which is in the center, its ecology, original ecology, has to adapt itself to the new era, pandemic era. As you know, this studio has its own ecosystem. I say ecology, but what is it? It's a concrete physical setting, all sorts of size, is having an impact on us. This smell, the lights, everything around our position in this setting, in this space, physical setting as well as social setting or social space, because it's also a space for socializing where people are sharing things, everybody has their own status. There are students that are managing the studio, participants coming and going. So they are coming and seeing and learning from each other. They see, they are seen, there's a dialogue, there's a synchronous feedback coming and going from both the managers of the studio, and there are evaluations by the students. So doing and reflecting, thinking over doing and reflecting. This is a setting that we have all experienced. Another thing is the ecology of the online studio, design studio. I tried to define it in the following way. This time, abstract and concrete space are together. The studio on the screen and the venue that is inside that, where we are. Sometimes home, sometimes school, sometimes balconies, sometimes streets. This is something that we have experienced with my students. On one hand, these two different spaces, venues, are intertwined. A social space is also important here. You see the names on the screen, the works on the screen. So it's possible to see the participants in terms of these pieces. And between the studio guys and students, there is a verbal dialogue. Sometimes there is no dialogue at all. Silence is there. Visibility, sometimes vision is there. Sometimes restricted vision is there. So there is an interaction in such settings. Just as I said in the beginning, what we are going to be sharing here, presenting here, is an example of an experience of basic design studio, Beykent University Industrial Design Department, basic design 2020 and 2021 spring term studio. Number of registered enrolled students was 50. We conducted this course in 2 groups with 25 each. the students that participated and that fulfilled their assignments and they took the exams is much higher than this total. Approximately half of them. So many of them did not continue the whole classes. Once a week, 4 hours of course we have conducted. So this design process is a process of producing information. That's something that we can define it as. What you design is not so important, actually. So the product is there, it's put there. So the first grade student adopts new habits and they gain discipline. So for personal growth, it's a revolutionary, it's a transforming process. So not only some skills are obtained there, actually there happens transformation of a personality, building up of personality. That's what takes place there. And during design education, actually the student is not learning what is taught. That student is following the pathway that he or she has drawn. And a situation is provided and the students is expected to define the problem. An autonomy is expected to be gained and the pathway is drawn by the students themselves. So this is an expectation that was never there in the previous years. So it's shocking in one sense. This shocking characteristic may have different results, of course. Sometimes unexpected things may also take place. So the course that we are submitting here, the methods used, the content, our purpose in setting them was as follows. During the pandemic era, online setting has restricted interaction. So we wanted to enrich the interaction in this setting. And of course, we wanted to see the new opportunities provided by the online platform, and increasing the motivation is an important point, increasing the level of critical thinking, and to contribute to formation of cooperation and a bond of confidence. So the approach that we adopted is as follows in implementation of in managing the studio. Within this framework, in 2020-2021, narration and gaming has been used.
Yoğunlaşmak, istek ve merak duyarak çalışmak sonucu
so, of course, focusing on its desires, curiosity, these are different factors. Actually, this is defined as the situation of flow by Nihal. Of course, playing intuition or role playing is very strong and it makes people creative. That's what culture is formed with, as mentioned by this scientist. So, with this philosophy and understanding, with this approach, the methods that we have used is as follows. In the beginning of the term, the student chooses a fairy tale. It's a beginning, it's a ground for the whole term for this student. And through the term, all the things that are carried out are classified under 2 points. The first one is narration, that takes the fairy tale as it is, as a basis. And the second part is adapting this fairy tale to different scenarios on Earth, on a contemporary manner. So, a fairy tale is selected and different paragraphs are read. including the implementers. And in this manner, social space is increased and a bonding is formed among the students. The theme of the fairy tale, the approach, the focus, atmosphere, characters, storyboards, collage, drawing, and pasting, abstract representation studies were carried out. Differentiation among persons, subjects, determining characteristic, stimulating different narrations. Such opportunities are provided in this regard. And the decisions of design need a rational. This is an understanding that the students are expected to develop. So taking fairy tales as a basis, opinions produced are rationalized. That's how the decisions were being made. That's the expectation. Because sometimes design process decisions can be arbitrary because creativity, students tend to think that that's what creativity requires, but that's not the case. So 3D microcosmos design is carried out, and these design studies, taking concepts as a basis, activate the cognitive processes. That's why we have chosen such a pathway. So the narration, one of the settings where they are used are storyboards. So they are drawing, students are drawing things in settings that they feel comfortable. The perception of the student is very different for each person. So visualization has its own language, actually, that's what we see. And the reconciliation between the abstract and the concrete is very important. Collage was used. They are more free. We want students to feel free here. What sort of a feeling it was during the fairy tale, how he perceives, she perceives it, how they want to narrate it. So the material is, they are free to select their material. And then comes another method. So all these, among all these methods, role-playing is very important. We wanted them to have a study of spontaneity, improvisation, and they did it on a text later on, this improvisation. Somebody starts with a sentence in the text, and others continue with other sentences. So all these things, they are actually very different to students. They are not used to it. They are not well prepared for that. But what is good about it is design is something to do with unexpected cases, because you need to be in a position to provide solutions to such crises. So it's a good exercise in that regard. And then comes questioning, some sorts of question maps, making question maps as a group. You start with a concept in the center, then comes different questions coming around that center, and a map was formed with that. So the interaction of the group is there in an online setting. It's sort of a socialization. That's what we wanted to do. And we came up with 3D work, microcosmosis design. We are sharing some of the examples with you. For each narration, we ask students to select some concepts and to make design upon those things. So the same fairy tale may sometimes had different results, different conclusions. Of course, in addition to the courses, we did some voluntary implementation, voluntary practices, preparing meal, submitting the meal was an exercise. On a voluntary basis, we did it. Those who want to came over. So design is not peculiar to a specific profession. It's everywhere in life. But that's what we wanted we wanted students to learn. Of course, not giving scores is encouraging them. They feel more voluntary in that regard. So before starting the course, listening to a certain piece of music was encouraging, and choosing the pathway according to the feedbacks or responses from the students. Sometimes students shared some pieces they like. Can you please sum up? Of course. And these meal practices, we wanted students to make evaluations. They formed a jury, they were providing reviews, and it's an interesting experience for them. And of course, Blackboard Collaborate platform was used. Miro is the application that we shared these pieces of art. It provided some advantages. It's like a representation of the physical studio setting. It's a board that is never unoccupied. So it's an opportunity to keep things there, to go and see back and to see the time dimension, to see how things evolve, how things develop. And sometimes we were writing down our comments, which were permanently there. It's very important for design studios. And it's an opportunity to put different pieces together. It was a bigger and bigger board, and this was very good for them and for us to see. As we come to the findings and the discussion points, we conducted a questionnaire at the end of all these efforts to see to what extent these methods were effective. Of course, participation was quite low. Almost half of the students filled in these questionnaires. Of course, this leads to a problem with regard to a reliability of the questionnaire. However, those that wanted to write down their names in the questionnaires for better exchange, for the future exchange of opinions, all the participants wanted to write down their names, which shows their level of interest, high level of interest. And the students were regularly taking part. They were actively involved, and they were having high scores, which gives us hope for efficiency of all these practices. And during these questionnaire practices, for this online experience, different methods that we used, we asked some questions about these methods, and the request from the students was to have more group activities. They had a need to know more about each other, to learn more from each other. They want to have more trust to each other, active involvement, critical thinking. These are the points that they mentioned. And the last word I would like to make is, it was a challenging experience for each and every one of us. Narration was quite encouraging as a ground. Fairy tale is an attractive practice that reduces stress. Lack of regular attendance restricted the role-playing strategies. Students used to think that this they used to think that online education is not suitable for basic design studio in this questionnaire. Of course, such practices may be the blossoms for future practices. When students listen to the recordings, they benefit from it, but to what extent it has an impact on the performance of the students, we don't know that. It's a matter of more further research for the future. And of course, some methods are there to be discovered in the future. Thank you very much.